volunteer. All right. Work in progress crit on your logo designs here. And I'll just randomly grab someone here. Whose are these? Actually, are these are Eli's, I think. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait for, in case he comes in, I don't want to go over this. So we'll circle back to that and hopefully he'll come in for that. Adrian, are you here? All right. So remind everyone, you've got 4 pages on here, so take a look at these. There's apparently 2 pages. I'm doing it at home, and it's again, it's a superstore that sells like home decor for pretty much anybody to come in and buy furniture, decorations, for the interior and whatnot. So for the first level, I was trying to go for something like, I guess, sleek. I was kind of inspired by those like the logos for like the rich stuff, I guess. Rich stuff. Yeah. Okay. But in that time, like I love this will fit at all for the company. Uh, oops, that's okay. All right, I'm sorry, continue. Stop it. I think it'll work out in a way. So for the second, for the other page, lean more towards down. Okay. But it's add more flair to that. Well, when we talked about the qualities that make a good logo, simplicity is actually one of them. So you're kind of leaning towards this as opposed to the ones on the first page? Yeah, pretty much. Because the first page kind of is like too rich for us to get, yeah, like I said earlier. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll walk you through, and here's the thing, if you want to do 2 logos, uh I will definitely give you extra credit for it because whenever someone hires you to do a logo, you don't just do one. You usually have to give them a selection to choose from. Could be 3 or 4, could be as many as 20. It really just depends on what you work out in advance. I'll walk you through a couple of these just depending on whatever you want to uh finish. One of the things too, if you created these in Illustrator, even if you send them to me as a PDF, I should be able to open them up here. So let me see here. That's how I'm going to screw around with all your stuff here. All right. The only problem is whenever you see this happen, when the type shows up in a pink box like that, what that is telling you is that you have this font on your computer, but I don't have it on mine. That's why. Oh, but if it's an Adobe font, it will usually auto-correct itself here. So on these, I just mentioned too that, and I'll go through a couple of these. Let's see. Um, the name of the game is precision. So the first thing I would do if you go with any of these is I'm going to come up here to the view drop-down menu and open the rulers. Oh, they're already up. Got so large, I can't see it. When you have rulers up, that's where the guidelines live. And what I would do for any of these to finish them off a little bit, I'm going to click and drop a guideline at the top of your roof up here on the left side and then do one on the right side. And so just to make it look more finished, I would size this up so that the at-home type on this page of logos, it really depends who your customer is because you have this all uppercase with the serif font, which tends to look a little bit more formal. And then you have the version down here where it's lowercase sans serif, which tends to be a little kind of more approachable, but maybe not more high end. It depends on how you structure it up here. So On any of these, I would do that. I'm not going to go through and do them on all of them here, but make sure everything, we call that justified when things are flush on both the right and the left on here. Your little house here kind of stands out a little bit just because it seems a little out of place with the real formal type and everything, and you have the nice kind of rounded shape here on it. Um, what I would do is try and match the angle on this if you can. Let's see. On the top. Oh, up here somewhere. Oh, okay. Well, I was going to just show you one thing you could do on here. And I'll walk you guys through this when I show you on Wednesday how to prepare your final files on here. Um, but one thing you want to do is with any of your type, you always want to outline it. And the reason for that is you never know if your client has Illustrator and you don't want them to go and take your logo that you designed and start changing the fonts and everything on it. One thing you could do to really match the angle on here, this is right now just a line, but if I outline it and turn it into a shape, so I'm going to outline the stroke. You have two in there or just one? Interesting. You guys always mystify me how you guys do your stuff here. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your little house and pull this up here. I'm going to take this outline and I am going to go down here to path. I'm going to come down here to offset path. What that does is it goes an equal distance from your shape and creates a new shape there so you can see what that looks like. And then what I'm going to do, and I think I've told you guys, I use this function a lot for logo design is the Pathfinder. And I use it a lot of times to have shapes make other shapes in here. So I'll leave this up because I'm sure I'll come back to it. But for this one, what I would do is select the house, select the red shape I just created. And actually, I am going to bring the red shape up to the front. And now I'm going to select the house, which looks like it's a little bit off center here. I'm going to select both shapes here. And what I'm going to do is use this one that's called minus front. That means whatever shape is in front is going to be subtracted from the other shape. And if I do that, I get this. And now I can get rid of this shape. And then you'll get a house that kind of mimics your shape here on that one. On this one, I think the only thing I would do, I would line everything up again. I think your house here is so thin. I would probably thicken it a little bit so it looks more like a house. Otherwise, it starts looking a little bit like a dagger. And then let's look at your other ones. So kind of the same thing here. Do you like the sans serif on here? Okay. But you, and then these are the ones you really like, right? Yeah. Those ones I spend a little bit more time. Those are the ones that I'll tell you what, here's a really, this is your really good idea, the little house as the center. We call that the counter. That's the shape inside letters here. And I think maybe you can put the bigger house back here if you want to, but I kind of think you don't really need it, to be honest with you. But let's take a look here. Let me get your how you have everything put together here. Oh, did you? Oh, you subtracted this already, right? Oh, okay. Um, yeah, I think you could probably just tighten this up a little bit and maybe drop that down. but I think this is a really great idea. Um, Depending on how how you want to draw attention to it, maybe you make that a little brighter color, but I think it looks pretty good in here. Did you make sure everything is centered on here? Let me show you, because here's the thing that's a little tough with fonts. You'll notice whenever you have a typeface up here or font up here, you've got the big bounding box up here. And when you try and center things, the problem is these bounding boxes are never tight, completely tight. See how there's a little gap between um, the end of the E and the end of the bounding box here. So what I always do is when I get to a point where I'm going to start working with the type, I actually create outlines for it. So if you come up here, type, create outlines. When you do that, these are now little vectors. If I take this into the outline view, whenever it's still a font, that will show up as black, but when it turns into a vector, now it's this. The only problem with that is if you're working with fonts you're not really familiar with, what I would do is, pull a copy of this off to the side, because what happens is you're working on this and the client wants to know what font it is. If you've outlined it and you click on it, you're going to see none of the information up here. Whereas if you save a copy off to the side here, then you can see, oh, it's Baltica bold on here. Now that you've outlined this, what I would probably do on here is when you outline it, it's always grouped together. So I would ungroup it. One thing I would do, I would probably tighten up your letter spacing on here a little bit. And that's really easy to do is just select a letter. And I'm just using the arrow keys on my keyboard. And part of the reason it's a good idea to kind of tighten up the letter spacing is it allows you to make the logo bigger in a space. And so what I would do is once you get your letter spacing how you like it, group it by the words. And now what you can do is select both of them and you can center it a little bit. And again, once you play with the letter spacing, and again, I think your idea here is the cool little house in the O. But, could you tighten everything up and maybe the A and the H go together? And when you do that, kind of makes a house out of the A. So there's some other options you could do here, but definitely, um, replace the O in here. And if you want to, we talked a little bit about manipulating fonts. If you grab the white direct selection tool, you can select these interior shapes and just delete them. But I think you're in really good shape. I think you know what? I would finish one of these and tighten this one up and finish it. And I think you have two really strong logos. All right. Let's give Adrian a hand here. Uh, Eli, I pulled yours up and you hadn't come in yet, but let's take a look. No, that's okay. All right. You are in the process of drawing this. I have to say, this looks pretty sharp. Are you happy with it?
I'm getting to the detail. I'll see if it gets kind of difficult to far away in that kind of issue. So, all right, there's some technique stuff I need to figure out, like the ceiling and there's like a line with the moon and the bottom.
Oh, right there.
Technique stuff.
Let me just give you some pointers on this. I think it looks fantastic, so I can't wait to see when it's done. So let's see. So you're doing everything with the line work here, right?
It will be honest. That's great.
Yeah, so I mentioned just before you came in, the name of the game on all this stuff is the precision on it. Couple things with working with strokes here, and it looks like you did a pretty good job. I'll leave it up to you. You have a lot of these end in the just with a flat cap on it. Let me clean up my workspace here. If you open the stroke panel, um, and when you open it up, and if you don't see it off to the right, you can always open it here in the window drop-down menu. Couple things you can do, and it's entirely up to you. I think it's fine the way it is. Sometimes it looks a little bit more finished if you kind of cap the ends on these lines. So if you open the stroke panel and use the hamburger menu to show the options, you do have the option to round the edges. And you don't have to do it everywhere, but especially maybe on his mouth, it kind of works better there. The other thing, if you have the stroke panel open too, you can adjust the look of this by changing the miter on here. Um, maybe not on this one. Um, yeah, so if you open the stroke panel, it's usually set at 4 as a default, and you'll see what happened. It chopped this off. And if that happens with some of your shapes here, just raise that up a little bit. I just took it to 6, and then you got the point in here. I will warn you that Illustrator does not do well with really sharp angles. You get a lot of kind of funky stuff happening on here. But I think for the design of this, it's just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. You were talking about some of the gaps and everything. I think what might help you when you're lining things up is to come up here to the view and go to outline mode. And that will show you the center of the lines here. And that will really allow you to, you know, you said you had the little flat spot here. If you go into preview mode, it will really help you make sure that, you have some lines here that don't quite meet. And so, you can grab the direct selection tool, see if you can get those to meet. Your drawing looks great. You got a little bump here. You can just take that. Here's where that pen tool comes in handy. The only one that looks a little weird to me is this angle here, where it almost seems like it might be better since you have all these great curve shapes in here. If this just curved, if you did something more like, I mean, smooth it out if you wanted to on here. What do you think?
Yeah.
On this one, here's another where, let's see if you raise the miter limit on it. Probably not. I'll show you one other option. Have you thought, do you want to put color in this at all? So here's, if you want to add color in this and you've drawn this all by hand, what you'll find is you can't really fill anything in because nothing is an enclosed shape on here. It looks like it filled it in, but it's really not. But what you can do when you get this where you're really happy with it, obviously save it so when you have it still as lines. But then what you should do is come over here, select everything, and you can tell that they're strokes or lines because you can see the line through the center of it. What I would do is come up here, object, and come down here to path and outline everything. So now these aren't lines, these are little vector shapes. And here's where that Pathfinder can really come in handy again. If you come over here, open the Pathfinder. I have lots of little black shapes. You can see they're kind of overlapping here, but they're not really joined together at all. And what you can do is, and again, make sure you've saved this before you ruin it like this, because once you do this, you can't undo it. But watch all these places where the lines that I've outlined overlap. If you open the Pathfinder tool and use the first choice, which is called Unite, what that does is now this has turned this almost into I like to say it's almost like stained glass, like these are the lines between the colored glass. And now that you've done that, these shapes are all enclosed and you can colorize them. The tool you would use for that, it's hiding under here under the width. Take that back. It's over here. It's underneath the shape builder tool. The one you're going to use is called Live Paint Bucket. And when you open that, what you can do is click in any of these spaces. And I know it's black. So here's the only issue on here. I can fill everything in, but I can't fill in the wolf back here. It's a wolf, right?
Coyote.
Coyote. The reason I can't fill in the coyote is it's open at the end. So you can only use this tool if it's um, a closed shape. Once you do that, what you do is this is another effect that you have to render. And in Illustrator, when you render something, either expand or expand appearance will be available to you. And if you hit OK here, now you can go ahead and put whatever colors you want in here. You've created the shapes within there, so you are completely free to color this however you want on here, with the exception of the coyote, only because it's not a closed shape. So I'll leave it up to you. If you want to close this shape up somehow, then you could do it. Obviously, you're not going to use these colors, but I just used them for an example. Here's the thing. Have you thought about how you want to incorporate the name, the type with this? Even if you just use this as the logo, we do need to understand how you're going to work the type with it.
Yeah. Yep. Left and right. This is where it's,
Okay.
I'll just write that. And what do you want ideas?
Okay. The beauty of it is once I would spend your time finishing this and really dialing it in, and then your type solution, once you have this finished, you'll understand how you want to incorporate the type, whether you break it up on either side, whether you snug it down here and hit this shape, maybe stack it off to the right. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I would really spend your time here. This is a fantastic logo, so really nicely done. All right, let's give Eli a hand here. Jenna, you are here. Take a look at yours. So you're working on the patterns. You're doing something really smart too, and this is what I'm going to do for when I have you guys do your final presentation on here. We always design on a white background, but your logo isn't always going to appear on a white background. You have to know how it's going to work or have an option for if it's going to work on a darker or colored background. And so I think it's really smart that you have done that to make sure it works. So, so is the cross stitch going to be your logo and the pattern is just something you use with branding? Well, what we're going to do, it's a separate assignment, but after we finish the logos, you're going to take this and do branding with it. And what that means is we're going to take it and basically release it out to the wild and see what it looks like on real applications. And I think what could be nice for you is this would be your logo, but then on, you know, cups and bags or anything, that's part that, any business, there's all sorts of peripheral, or we actually call it ephemera. It comes from the word ephemeral, which means, just barely there. It stands for like any paper goods that aren't, you want a brand, but they're not meant to last the test of time. So coffee cups and napkins and bags and things like that. So you could have this be your logo and this just be supporting graphics. Like if you saw that wrapped around a coffee cup or something, it'd be really cool. So I say you're in really good shape. Have you figured out how you want to work with the type on here? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the logo is really great. And what I'm advising everyone to do on this, zoom out every once in a while and see what this looks like small. That's about the size it's going to appear on someone's business card. And it's still readable as the logo and it's still readable as the cross stitching. One problem with patterns like that is once you get really small with stuff, it starts filling in or breaking apart. But I think you did a great job on this. So again, I think it's just finding a type solution because, you know, like I always say too, you know, it took Nike 40 years before they could drop the word Nike and just go with the swoosh. So even if you've developed a logo that's an icon or a symbol, you will have to figure out a way to also tell us what the company is too. But these are really great. Have you given any thought to color on this at all? Okay. That's really warm and inviting. So I think that's probably a good call on there. But you're in really good shape. This looks fantastic. All right, let's give Jenna a hand here. Let's see, whose is this? Avuka, let me open yours. So you are doing, explain to everyone the initials again. SI. Here's the thing, I think though, if you it's okay if you can't read it if we also put the word Studio Ivy next to it. When people see the mark and then they see the name, then they'll be able to get the initials on here. Um, it's I'll show you a couple things here. It's a little tough when you're trying to do your own. Um, so did you use the pen tool or how did you do your initials on there? All right. Let me see if I can do this. I really, really wish they would take the eraser out of this thing because it when you erase stuff, you can't undo it. Let me show you this here first. All right, so let's see if it auto corrects the fonts. It might. For your, let's see. Okay, so no, that's okay. So there's a couple tools I think would be really helpful for you. And the first one is under the object drop-down menu. If you come down to path, one of these two, either simplify or smooth, they kind of do the same thing. But if you do simplify, it's a real simple um, uh, tool here. It basically you either add points or take points away. So if you have your type there, we can slowly take points away so that it becomes a little bit more, get some more of the curves back together. So it straightened it up a little bit. Um, Something like that. There's still some issues up here. But again, if to get the smoothest lines, it's always good to use the fewest number of points on here. But something that might make this look a little bit more delicate up here. Um, if you come up here under the brush definitions here, there are different ways that you can do line work on here. And one of them is to make it maybe a little bit more calligraphic, like it was done by hand. If you come here under this library, let's see. So I'm going to do artistic calligraphic. What this does is it's as if you did it with a um, kind of with a quill pen. So things that look a little bit more like ribbons in here might be a really nice way to go on here. and make it look a little smoother. And I would just really work on, we smoothed it out a little bit, but see wherever you have chunky areas in here. And if you grab your pen tool, and I'm going to grab this tool, if you click and hold the pen tool down, the anchor point tool, that will allow you to go in here and maybe adjust some of these curves where they've gotten a little too sharp in here. And I think that's going to help you out a lot too. So one of the things we don't, we, I haven't had you guys do it. I think maybe making this a little thinner too would help you. And remember on this dashed line, you can specify what you want on this. So if I do 8, 4, 8, 4, you can get something that maybe looks a little bit more like stitching on there. Um, it takes some getting used to, but one of the things, if you do want to pursue this as a career, we usually don't use mice when we're working. It's kind of default to use a tablet. Um, it's a little tricky to learn how to use the tablet in here, but as far as like trying to get more natural handwriting, that might be something that helps on here. So I think everything, even your ribbon up here, again, try that simplify option. So object drop down to path to simplify, or you can try smooth, kind of the same thing, but it will take some of the lumpiness out of there. Maybe make it look more like a ribbon. All right, so I think it's just really smoothing it out and making it look a little bit more finished that way. And then again, I wouldn't worry about not being able to read the eye. I think if you have Studio Ivy off to the side or underneath it, people will make the connection to the initials on there, so you should be okay. All right, let's give Avuka a hand here. Let's see, whose is this? Carissa, are you here? Okay. Hanger 18. All right, talk to me.
But this is one of them. It's the engine. I kind of wanted to go with like the UFO type of design that I was doing. So that's why like the adding the gear kind of slightly going up. Way. And then the letter, like the pipe, I wanted it to be slightly jagged to kind of mimic the box.
Okay.
Looks a lot like one of those are used. So it's different like that.
Okay, comments. What do you guys think? See, if someone asks you something like that, you say, of course. Of course, it was planned that way all along. I get why you're making some of the type look. How did you make the type look a little more jagged in here? Okay, what do you guys think? I'm curious. Yeah.
Feel like you could put this one almost, you know how the rock when you climb up a rock wall has like those holes, like what she's doing almost with the letters, you could almost do that inside of the letters. But look pretty
Oh, you mean like the handholds? Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah, they do kind of look like the handholds you would get on an indoor climbing gym on here. I get it. My only concern is, does it look unfinished with the angles in there? I mean, are people going to make that connection with it? Um,
Yeah, this isn't the one I was supposed to send it, but. yeah,
Oh.
Side, I like the idea of it. But yeah, I kind of have the same thought, specific, I like the numbers on it.
Yeah, I do. I know, I do too. I think, um, yeah, I'll tell you what, after we're done with this, let's look at what the font looks like by itself and see if this is a improvement over it. I do think it's a fun font. I'm not sure about this. That looks like really kind of like, pardon the expression, but like old people type, you know. It's serif, it's a little precious, and rock climbing is pretty aggressive and outdoorsy. I would probably do a sans serif font with this. Or if you want to do a serif font like this, I would choose something chunky. Maybe a slab serif font like the Sony logo or something that just, you want something that has enough weight to it that it can balance with this up here. I know I'm going to regret showing you this, but this one actually seems like it might be appropriate. Let's see here. Where'd you go? All right. Oh, you haven't rendered this yet, have you? So here's the thing. It's telling me that Adobe still sees it like this.
Yeah, that's the,
Is that the original type? So here's the thing on this, because when I click on this, you can still see the ghost of the original type on here. What you can do with these, if you haven't rendered them, you can always go back here and let's see. You can actually turn these effects off if you want to. I'm just checking. Let me see if I can. So I'll leave it to you. So you just rounded the corners on these. But I'll tell you what, if you want to keep it the way you have it, and again, you're the designer on this, so I'm going to put it back here. What you need to do is when you get to this point, save it this way, but then this is something, let's see, these you need to render. And in Illustrator, it's either expand or expand appearance. And now these are all vectors in the shape that you wanted them. Yeah, for this type, I'm just thinking of the first kind of heavy. This is a slab serif font called Clarendon. That might work with it. One thing I would do, I'd probably tighten the space up a little bit. And here's the part I'm going to regret, but I wanted to show you this. This is something they added in last year for Adobe or Illustrator. We talked a little bit about 3D, and if you go to these newer options here, especially materials, they have some materials in here that mimic rock or stone, and you can go through here. Some of them look okay, some of them look kind of stupid. If you wanted to do that and just check what it would look like with some texture on it. Um, the reason why I'm always a little reluctant to do that is when you use some of these special effects, these stop being vectors and they become pixelated, and then it makes it hard to use it on bigger applications on here. So I'll leave it up to you. Was there another one you wanted to send instead? Okay, I'll tell you what, after we're done here, I'll come over and take a look at it with you. All right. Could be fun. So I think a little ways to go, but I think your initial ideas here are good. So let's give Alyssa a hand. Mei Ling is not here. So she is doing DA. Um, So she's got three options here. What do you guys think? She's trying to do the initials DNA.
I don't see the end.
Well, it's just D and A,
Oh,
not DNA. I'm sorry. Uh,
Good idea.
She's got a really good idea here. So I kind of gravitate towards this first one because it just reads so much quicker on here. But this is about for her writing. And see, if you see this little shape here, it's like turning the center of the A into the nib of a pen, which is kind of one of our shorthand ways of doing that. I think that's a real clever idea. The problem is it's so thin and tiny. When we start talking about some applications, like that's about what it's going to be on. Actually, it's probably going to be like that on a business card. The whole idea just kind of vanishes in here. So what?
Add like a drop or something above it to make it like a pink drop or something.
Possibly. What I would do first is take the same idea, but just make the line like 2 or 3 times thicker and the dot. You have to really exaggerate this nib so that people would read it. But I think either this first option I like a lot, and this one, if we can just make that nib a little bit more um, noticeable on there, I think that's a good option as well. And again, like I said, if anyone wants to finish a second logo, I'm happy to give you guys extra credit on it. This one just to me starts looking like the D is under construction or something. The A is not really coming through as prominent as it does here. So I think probably these two are our best choices on here. But nicely done. Let's give her a hand as well. Jenna, we did. Let's see. All right. All right. Talk to me, Melvin.
Figure out like ways that you can make the middle of the key like circular, because I couldn't find any fonts. So that middle one, I think we just add like, yeah, obviously add like a circle in there.
That's kind of the where my eye went first on here. Yeah, I think it looks good on here. Um, you're playing with some gradients on here. Um, I'll show you. Here's the thing with gradients, and this is kind of my little rule for logo design when it comes to color and stuff like this. It came from, uh, basically a kind of screw up on my part. I did a logo for a movie that had all these gradients in it, and I think it looked great. Then we went to go embroider it on ball caps because everyone in the crew and everything gets a ball cap. And in applications like that, the gradients, there's no way to really do it. And sometimes gradients look great digitally. If you're designing something for a device, for a phone, for an app, gradients are great. When you get in the world of having to print them, they can get a little sketchy and get a little bit of banding on there. But yeah, I'm kind of going here with this one. I'll show you a couple things and let's see here. So I'm really going here. The only thing, let's see how you built this. Okay. The one thing that is bugging me is how thin this is, this little part here. So I don't know if you take this P and just make it a little bit wider, or I'm just using the white arrow and I'm not grabbing a point, I'm grabbing a side. So I think you just need that gap to be a little bit more, or the piece over here to be a little thicker, just a little bit. I would probably grab this in and move it in just like that, a little bit on here. We talked about precision on here, and it's good that you're thinking ahead about how to put the type in here. Again, I would always drop a guideline here and make sure everything lines up on it. You're pretty close. But I think it's looking great. On this one, did you do the intertwine thing on it?
Yeah, I do.
Um, here's the only issue, and I get this is why you're doing the gradients on here. I'm gonna take them off for a second here. Let's see. So the one thing about intertwine is if you have to do this in one color, and oftentimes you'll have to do it in black, um, what you can do just to show you this. Oh, do you have let's see. Okay. I'm going to, just to make sure you guys can see this, I'm going to give these like a color here. So I'll make one. All right. So if you want to do a monogram look where they're um, intertwined, what you kind of have to do is, again, I just chose these colors so you could see it. What I'm going to do is come over here and come down here to path, offset path, and that's probably a little too much. So it's basically taking an outline of my type and tracing it around there. I'm going to make it a little thinner here. And the reason you do that is, um, let me ungroup these. And I know it looks crazy, I'm going to give this a shape. I'm going to give this a weird shape. Let me give you this one. All right, so it looks crazy, right? But once you do that, and I'm going to select everything here, and the Pathfinder tool I'm going to use is the first one in the second row here, which is called Divide. And when you click on it, it doesn't look like anything happened, but what it did is wherever any of these shapes overlap, it created shapes. So I'll show you what I mean. That I don't need. This I don't need. That I don't need. And then what you decide is, I want this P to go under this P. So this one, I don't need this. I know it's a little confusing here, but the idea is this P is going under that one. And then when it comes down here, the P is going to be on top. And then what you can do is, and I always forget there's interior shapes here as well. So this is kind of what you need to do if you want this kind of monogram look, but you want it to just be in one color. So if I put it in black now you can really so you kind of need these channels to separate it. So if that's something you want to do, I can walk you through it again and show you how to do it. But I really think you got a really nice logo with this one.
Yeah, actually, too, I did do something similar to that. I wasn't sure if it was gonna look too similar to that.
So I'll tell you the one thing you don't want to do is what happened to Disney when they were doing a big rebrand of California Adventure, and they decided to call uh, the kind of pier area, it was going to be Pixar Pier. So they wanted two P's, and their initial design looked like this. So can you see why that might be a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for a Disney park. I don't know if you want that as your logo. So yeah, but you can play around with it and just, figure out how you want to. if it were me, I would probably tighten your leading on this. That's the space between lines. Just don't go by what Adobe tells you to do. If you go to drop to the window menu to type and go to character, here the second dialog box is where you can kind of tighten this up a little bit. You had also asked about, the ink in here, the incorporated. One thing you could do is make it not so important. And let's see. If you go to Arial, so it's a way to get it in there, but make it look not quite so, important in there. I would look about doing that. But yeah, these are looking great. Let's give Melvin a hand here. Let me see who else. Oh, and Brad. I think Brad, you may be the one. Oh, hang with me for just a minute and we'll get these done. Let's do Brad's first.
I did submit a new one actually.
Well, but this is what I have. So what is,
So I went more around with the that like base idea that I came up with. Because it seems like that was more a little more interesting than what I had been going for.
it's crazy. And you still got the infinity symbol in there. You know what? I would totally wear this as a t-shirt.
The arcs above the eyes are kind of supposed to be like a unibrow or something like that.
I'll show you. This is like one of my favorite designers. And the weird thing is he was super successful up in LA. And then he got into doing film and he basically gave up doing graphic design. But he did a lot of these really cool, let me find. Yeah, he did a lot of really cool stuff like this. I actually have a print of his up in my house. Um, he was so popular, they even put out 2 books of his work. He even had a store up there called Made on Earth. Um, let's see.
Science is the right thought for it.
What?
On the right.
To the right? Oh, like that?
It's how it kind of gives me like a
Mad science is the right.
Oh, the mad scientist?
That was a little similar to that.
Yeah, if you go and check his stuff, I love his stuff, but he like just basically I just typed in logos on here. But it really reminds me of the type of stuff he did. Just so the key on for yours is you still have to figure out how type is going to work with it.
yeah, I haven't really chosen a font.
Well, the mark's great. Creepy, unsettling, but great. So I think it's definitely something people would remember. Justin, this goes for everyone. Periodically, hold your phone up to your monitor and see how this looks if it's on your phone.
Yeah, I've done that. I also shrink it down so that's why I made it so.
Yeah, no, it's great. So just don't screw it up with the type now. All right. Easier said than done, but that looks great. And I told you guys when you started this that if your final logo doesn't look like any of your thumbnails, that's fine. It's kind of a journey you're all going on. But no, this looks great. So if you have some type options and you want to run them by me, I'm happy to look at them, but you're in good shape. Let's give Brad a hand. And then the last one I had, let me make sure here. What did you say?
Not trying to look at it.
Why are you not trying to look at it?
Oh, no, I know I can do a different one because it doesn't really look like an official, it doesn't have like that look to it. Grab your attention too much.
So where did you get the type?
The type
Yeah.
from the font.
Okay. And so here's the thing. It has a very hand done feel to it, which if you're selling your business as, kind of homemade tacos and everything, I think it's totally valid. What don't you like about it?
I just feel like I could make it or just make something better about it.
Um,
I'm not saying it's horrible, but it's like you were saying, it has more like a homemade feel to it.
Way to sell it, Xavier. My big complaint on this is your hot sauce has gotten totally lost.
Yeah, no, I can't see it from
Um, yeah, so that might be adjusting. Let me show you, they added this in last year to Illustrator. And because I always consider kind of my color sense, let's see. Oh, these are default fonts.
here. Yeah.
All right. Um, let's see here. Looks like I don't even need it. Okay, I don't know what happened to, let's see. The way you guys build this stuff is just crazy. What is all these little shapes on here?
That's the shadow. That's not.
Oh my, seriously?
Yeah, yeah, I was in.
Oh, okay. I think for this, and just bear with me. What's the, do you remember the name of the font?
Impactful club. Or impact, oh, sorry.
Club? There it is. So let's see about this. Let me try and open this up again. I can't believe that's how you did this. All right. Let me see. Okay, there's your, where were all the little lines and everything? These little things.
I think it's the text again, but just more for.
All right.
I guess.
So I'm in preview mode here. I've got your font now. I'm going to cut it out of here. And I don't know what you did here. So I'm just going to.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what you did. You found the hardest and most time-consuming way to do this. Let's take this one out. Oh. All right. Almost there, you guys. So I don't know what you did, but I took it out. Here's your type. So did you want it to have a drop shadow on it?
Yeah.
So so here's what you would do. I think it's easier. It's kind of a pain to work with this as fonts. So what I would do is come over here under type and do create outlines for it. And let's make this your shadow. You had it being what? It wasn't black, was it?
No, it's like a dark red.
All right, so I'll choose a red. Come over here and make it darker. And I copied your type. It's floating out there right now. So what I would do with this type, let's go ahead and group it. And now, because I copied this type, if I come up here and do paste in place, oh, it should have gotten everything here. I just did paste in place. So I outlined the type. I put your outline. Let's see how yours was here. So yellow type, kind of a brownish red outline on it. So Here's this brownish red color I created. What you can always do when you create your own colors on here, you can always just drag them in here so you always have access to them. In theory. Why won't you let me pull this in? All right, doesn't matter. Here I'm going to grab your red color. And so if you do something like that, you'll get your type and it will just be all even. And it always scares me when I see all these little lines hiding in there in the back, but um, I think it's fine. I would just do something with your um, taco sauce so that it shows, or the hot sauce, sorry. The big issue here is the hot sauce is almost identical to the background here. What you could do is separate it by maybe making the outline lighter. Let me see if I can grab it here. Oh my gosh, the way you guys build stuff. All right. I think the easiest for you is, and I'm not able to do it here. All right. Um, Took me long enough. What I would do is just separate that from the background, maybe use the same yellow as an outline here. Just so that you get it broken off the background on there. Does that make sense? Either that or you would, lighten the background here. You just need contrast. If you go really light with the background, that will pop. If you want to keep the color you have in there, maybe this color goes lighter, but you just need something that's going to get some contrast in there. All right. But yeah, I like the hand and quality to it. I do like your oh my gosh, do I want to know how you built this? Probably not. I'll show you one thing you can do too. You can do this for your lettuce. If you take your pen tool and let me clear this up a little bit here. Rather than draw all those by hand, what you can do is select this, come up here under effect, and there's actually, if you go into distort, there's actually a roughen feature on here. And you can make it look as crazy or as not crazy as you want by playing with the sliders here. But it might give you a little bit more lettucey feel to it if you did that. Um, is that cheese?
Yeah.
All right. I'll show you one last thing. I know this is running long here. Um, what?
Looks just the way. I think it was because it was like yeah, at the time it said it was new, like that one day.
Oh,
I just like
I was gonna cover this probably on Wednesday. Talking about adding texture to things. One of the ways we can add texture, there's a couple great pattern making options for, let's give this a cheese color. Let's go a little oranger so you guys can see it. Um, I'll go over this more on Wednesday because I don't want to take the time right now to do it, but there's something we call symbols, and you can make your own symbols. So here's my symbols panel. I have my three little pieces of cheese here, and I can drag this in and call it cheese. Once you have that, the tool we use for symbols is called the symbol sprayer. It looks like a little spray can over here. And when you click and it doesn't look random right now, but underneath the little spray can, you have some options where you can spin it around and make it look a little bit more random on here. At the very least, it can save you a little bit of time on there. But I think you're in good shape on this. So just make sure we can see the hot sauce on here. Um, let's put it this way, it's 100 times better than what they currently have. So maybe we'll walk across the street and try and sell it for you. All right, let's give Xavier a hand. All right, that was everything that I had as of 8 a.m. Let's go ahead and take a break. I want to spend a little time just talking about trends you might want to use with your logos, and then you'll have time in class to work today. All right, thanks, everyone.